Tennis is a sport that's built on patterns. Every rally, every serve, every point follows familiar geometry. Players spend thousands of hours training their instincts to recognize certain spins, certain angles, and certain tactical patterns. A right-handed player serves wide on the deuce court. The returner reaches, and the rally opens up. And both players instantly understand what the point is supposed to look like. But every once in a while, there's players who show up that completely break the geometry. Left-handed players in tennis have always had this strange aura. They're awkward to rally with, uncomfortable to return against, and for some reason, they make even elite players look confused. Opponents who look perfectly composed against the rest of the tour suddenly start shanking returns, misjudging spins, and making tactical mistakes they normally never make. And historically, some of the most dangerous players in tennis history have been left-handed. Players like Nadal, John McEnroe, Jimmy Connors, Rod Laver. Different eras, completely different styles. But they all shared one thing in common. Their left hand turned the tennis court into a nightmare for right-handed opponents. And today we're going to break down exactly why left-handed tennis players are so dangerous, and why something as simple as holding the racket in the opposite hand can completely change the dynamics of the entire sport. But before we get into it, if you enjoy deep dives into tennis strategy, history, and the weird quirks that make this sport so fascinating, make sure to subscribe to the channel. It helps a ton, and it lets me keep making these long-form tennis videos. Now, let's talk about the real reason left-handed players cause so much chaos on the tennis court. So the biggest advantage left-handed players have is actually very simple. They're rare. Only about 10% of the global population is left-handed, which means the overwhelming majority of tennis players grow up playing against right-handers almost all the time. From junior tennis all the way through the professional level, the patterns players see are most always the same. They know how a right-handed slice moves, they know how a right-handed cross-court forehand feels, and they know where the natural rally positions are. And their instincts are built around those patterns. Then suddenly they play a left-hander and everything feels wrong. The spins are reversed, the serves move in the opposite direction, and the cross-court rallies target completely different wings. Even though the court is exactly the same, the entire geometry of the match flips. And because left-handed players are so uncommon, most players simply just don't get enough practice against them. Now, if there's one shot where lefties gain a massive advantage, it's the serve. The serve is the only shot in tennis that a player has complete control over. And because of that, left-handers can use the natural spin of their serve to target the most uncomfortable return patterns for right-handed opponents. The most famous example happens in the ad court. A left-handed slice serve naturally curves wide into the right-hander's backhand. It's devastating, because for most players, the backhand return is typically the weaker return, which means the left-hander can drag their opponent completely off the court and instantly open up the entire opposite side for the next shot. It's one of the simplest patterns in tennis. Serve wide, pull the opponent off court, finish in the open space. Now, if the serve is the first weapon left-handers use, the forehand is the second. And this is where things become unfair. Most right-handed players are trained to attack rallies with their inside-out forehand. Why? Because a right-handed inside-out shot usually targets the opponent's backhand. That's one of the most common patterns in tennis. But against a left-hander, that same pattern completely backfires. A right-hander's inside-out forehand goes directly into a left-hander's forehand, which most of the time is a player's biggest weapon. Suddenly, the entire rally dynamic flips. Instead of targeting the weakness, you're feeding the opponent's strength. Now, of course, you can't talk about left-handed dominance in tennis without referencing one name, Rafael Nadal. Nadal didn't just benefit from being left-handed, He built an entire tactical system around it. His strategy against right-handed players was brutally simple. Brutalize their backhand over and over again. Because Nadal is left-handed, his cross-court forehand jumps high into the opponent's backhand side. Nadal was able to generate some of the heaviest topspin ever recorded in professional tennis, which means the ball explodes upward after the bounce, which is another reason why he was so killer on clay. It wasn't just power, it wasn't just athleticism, it was a tactical choice, using his left-handed strength to attack his opponent's weakness. Now, interestingly, being left-handed isn't always an advantage. When left-handers play each other, the edge disappears. And they even start to have problems. The spins feel more normal to them, but the rally patterns return to what they're used to. The rare becomes familiar and they need to change their game. But since left-handers are so rare on tour, that situation doesn't happen very often. But at the end of the day, tennis is a sport with tiny margins. And any small advantage you can get can carry you far. A slightly better serve, a slightly heavier forehand, a slightly smarter tactical pattern, while being left-handed improves all three. It disrupts players' instincts, it reverses the geometry of the court, and it forces opponents to play outside their comfort zone. That's why left-handers have always been so dangerous. And as long as most tennis players are right-handed, the few who aren't will continue to bring chaos to the court. Sometimes, all it takes to change a sport is flipping the racket to the other hand. We'll see you next time.